Welcome to One Question Wednesday. I'm your host, Jonathan Schechter. In this episode, I chat with Tristan Victor, who is an embodiment coach that I have followed for a while on Instagram and really admire. When I first started following Tristan, he was doing like cannabis integration coaching, which was really curious to me, and that really kind of sparked my interest in his message and some of the things that he was talking about. And I just really appreciate how he carries himself and his message. So I hope you enjoyed this episode about what it means to be present and be authentic. And, really think it ties into the episode that we did last week about somatic awareness. So hope you enjoy this one and that you've checked out the previous episode as well. Cheers. All right. Hey, Tristan.
What's up, Jonathan? It's good to hear you. It's good to see you. And thank you so much for this opportunity to extend this space to share and connect with others.
Absolutely. Pleasure is all mine. I like you got some cactus back there.
Yeah, this is there's a bunch of cactuses over here and succulents around that you can't fully see, but just enjoying some sunshine. I'm out here in Cali, in Los Angeles, so it's a beautiful day outside. I'm loving the background. I believe that's a Japanese painting, right?
Yeah. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for being here. So welcome to another episode of One Question Wednesday, the show where we bring you one burning question about meditation, breath work, self-development, plant medicine, somatics, all kinds of things about your development. But we just keep it to one question. Nice. My guest today is I am Tristan Victor. His name is self-explanatory, Tristan. And I've been following Tristan for a while. I really dig his message, the way that he presents himself and his offerings. And there was a particular post that you had made, Tristan, that really it really landed to me. And that was the main reason where I was like, okay, I gotta have this guy on the podcast. I really want to hear more about where he's coming from. You had such an authentic and vulnerable answer in this post. And in this post, you were sharing about not feeling disconnected from your body for most of your life. And, that now you are finding yourself much more embodied, much more connected. And so my question was, how do you accomplish that? What practices do you do, or is it a mindset? What is it that lets you feel connected and feel like you're in your body?
Yeah, such a great question. And thank you for that. To give some good context so that people know kind of my background and how it led up to that awakening to my body consciousness. Essentially, I grew up under a household where the energy was very out of body, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Essentially, like my dad was working and supporting the family, so I spent more time with my mom and my little sister. And the way that we would connect was through movies and through shows. And so growing up, my life was filled with Disney movies, Harry Potter. It was filled with different television shows, anime. And so that would be the way that I would then connect with my family. Is we would sit down, we would watch a show, and we would talk about it. And growing up, although that enhanced my creativity and my imagination, my ability to kind of see storylines and character developments, it did create a habit of me constantly being in my mind and in my own imagination. You top that with also society's way of creating this hierarchy of intellect, where the most successful people are the ones who have the highest intellect, which is what academia weaves into the expectation of knowing more. Right? Who knows the most? The better grades, the PhD, it's surrounded by intellect, which is the mind, right? And so growing up, this was then a habit of me constantly just being in my mind and in my head, in my intellect. And in some ways, I was even praised for just my ideas, right? And my ability to have all these amazing insights and these ways of speaking, these philosophical thoughts, where I even studied philosophy in college. And what I started noticing was that the philosophy was great, but it didn't necessarily support me in the actual embodiment or engaging in my life. It brought me more into just thinking. And so when I started working with psychedelics and different plant medicines like psilocybin, like cannabis in a different way than I was before, it started bringing me more into presence, into connection, into the here and the now, arriving to here. And I read Ram Dass's book, Be Here Now. And during that time when I was reading his book and I was working with psilocybin, I was having all these awakenings, right? All these awakenings of, wow, I haven't really been here. I've been somewhere else. I've been really disconnected. And the more I started working with that, the more I started to see the layers of embodiment, right? And I spelled it INBODYMENT. And so being in my body, in the movement, that's how I kind of explain it. It's like, it's a movement. It's not so much a state of mind at all. It's more so just, it's a feeling. It's a way to be. And so 3 things that really started pivoting this and that can support others was, number 1, connecting more with the land and with nature. That started becoming a new practice for me, was slowing down, was walking barefoot, was really allowing nature to become my teacher and allowing myself to listen to the trees and listen to the wind, listen to the fire, listen to the earth and listen to the water. And so that was like my first step in arriving more into my body, was being in this realm, right? Being in this world, right? Rather than in the worlds that I can create or escape to in my mind. And that first step was game changer. I started gardening, putting my hands to the earth, moving mulch around, and allowing myself to really receive the sunlight, receive the lessons from what nature continues to teach me. The second thing was having the opportunity and the blessing to be in connection with some really amazing and powerful bodywork healers. My partner, she does really powerful quantum alignment, bodywork, hands-on sessions, and so does her mentor. And getting introduced to that work was game changer. Like, wow, that was my second awakening into how much tension and trauma my body carries. And so being able to realign my spine, notice how I clench up, notice where there was years and years of my neck kind of just laying back like that. And then being able to readjust it and feel the difference in that, because this is where like I carried my fear and all the pressure. So learning more about how my body was communicating with me and learning how to listen to the subtleties. And I was almost like I had to relearn how to walk, how to stand, how to fix my posture and all that was my second deepening of being in my body, more of feeling, wow, when I'm texting or when I'm on my computer, when I'm driving, the impact that has of how the energy then gets stuck, right? Then how the energy needs to be moved, and then the necessary actions to move it, right? To be more engaged. That all then led me to the third one, which was doing the actual things, right? The actions of yoga and being more in the engagement of my ideas, right? Putting the idea into action and into purpose and into engagement, connection, and presence. And that's where then I started finding more of, wow, for so long I had all these great ideas, I had all these thoughts, but being more in my body, I get to feel what it feels like to be engaged in the actual experience of what I'd like to create for myself in my life. And so the practice was, keeping consistent in movement and exercise and my dieta right now, drinking more and more water, watching what I'm eating, working with the seasons, we're in fall. So going more into grounding and warming foods, connecting more with my lineage, with the Mexicas and how they saw life and then we're more in their body, and all that to then bring forward more of this, cool, now that I'm here, arriving to the now, I can now move with that and engage more with what my heart wants to bring forward, which was like coaching and the podcast and music, and rather than like the fantasy of, oh, that would be so fun and that'd be great, or like the little step in, the embodiment of being in it and allowing that to be the normal of my life, to be the experience of how I feel like to be engaged in it and what comes up in that process. So that kind of summarizes a little bit of like, in retrospect, the process, the story, and what has supported me to getting more into arriving
Yeah, I love that. There's so much to unpack there. Some of what I heard that really resonates is, that connection to community as well as to yourself, right? So you, it sounds like not only did you start to turn your consciousness and your experience outward and be open to sharing it with others, but you were also letting that energy in, being connected with nature, being connected with different practices that can support the vision that you want to embody and that you want to bring forward into the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that. It resonates so strongly with me because one of the things that came up was, you mentioned these very easy things, right? Like drinking water, getting out into nature, like taking care of our physical vessel. I think sometimes people, when they start down this path of development or improvement, they feel like there has to be like this huge tidal wave, shift of what you're doing. And it's like, no, you just take one step at a time, take one breath at a time. Like you don't have to worry about the rest of your life. Just be here, be with yourself. And like when we're quiet and we can connect with our breath and our body, it's amazing, like what our body will tell us. Like our body will show us the next way, and nature will connect us with that next step. Yeah. I had an experience. I had an experience this year where, and I'm still like, I'm on the tail end of this healing from it. I fractured my shoulder. I've been in like a, pretty intense physical experience for most of the year. And one of the things that's helped me the most is like getting out into nature as much as I can. During the worst part of it, I was out in nature every day and just being there and breathing and being open to receiving all the different signals and lessons that nature wanted to give me. They were right there, but like you were saying, usually we've got that lamp like turned inward into our experience, into our fears or our hopes or, all those things. And there's so much magic just around us that's there for the taking.
Yeah. 100%. What you shared really resonated with me of allowing our body to be the navigation of where our next step is. And I found it so hard for me, in the beginning of my journey, because there was so much pressure of needing to know what I was going to do, right? In college, it was like, what are you going to major in? What are you going to major in? What do you want to do? What are you going to do? What's your plan? What's your plan? Even when I stepped away from college and, step into entrepreneurship, it was like, okay, cool. What's your niche? How are you going to, what's your focus? What makes you different? What's this? All these answers. Where there was this overwhelming pressure to need to know what I was going to do in my life. On top of that, like needing to know also meant my finances and needing to know how I was going to make money. And there was this pressure, right, of survival, and then wanting to know the answers so I could know how to move. And what was very supportive, and I like that you mentioned bringing it back into the body to allow that to be the compass, is I found that compassion has the word compass in it. And so when we're exploring what direction to go, I found that that's when we need the most amount of compassion for ourselves, because then our heart becomes our compass to then navigate us. And when we have self-compassion, it gives us the opportunity to really check in with what's most present and what's going to support us in the next step. And doing that more and more, arriving back into here, allowed me to step into the body and then navigate from there of like, okay, cool. Especially with the entrepreneurship of, cool, I have all these exciting ideas. But coming back here allowed me to start with just what's the first step? Yeah. And then moving in that way. And that's what I found a lot in my coaching and the people I'm supporting is, yes, it's all going to happen. And it starts here. It starts with just taking that first step and then noticing what comes up. Yeah. And working with our relationship with fear and discomfort and moving in that way. And then your purpose finds you. And there's nothing to figure out at that point. It's more so things to engage with more and experience. And that becomes the answer. So
I love that so much. And it's amazing how in sync we are, because I would say for the last few years, I really feel like I've gotten out of my head and into my heart. And after living in my head my whole life and being disconnected from my heart, from my body, like you're saying, one of the things I find the most profound is that when I'm in presence and when I'm listening to my heart, there is absolutely no doubt. There's no question. It's just the way I always describe it is it's like a compass inside my heart, and it just points in the direction where I need to go. And all I have to do is have faith and like open to following it. And I don't have to think about it. Like all that drama that was up in my head, all the overthinking, all the decisions, all the narratives and like the extra stuff just completely goes away as soon as I drop into that heart space.
Exactly.
And so it's like, wow, the more I can live in that place, the better.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. And I wanted to mention one other thing that I really appreciate about your message. And maybe I'm reading this wrong. So if you have a different interpretation, please let me know. But I love that you are being honest about the humanness of this journey and of this work. Like you have some posts about, I think you called it ascension addiction, which to me, I would also call like spiritual bypassing, right?
Right.
We get so wrapped up in like these peak experiences, or, you had a post about like sort of looking down at people that weren't vegan or weren't meditating as much as you, instead of like having that compassion for them.
Right.
And, I have a lot of compassion for people that are like that, because I know what it's like to be there. And I also know that it's like, if I'm cutting myself off from that part of my humanity, that part of my journey, I'm really not doing myself a service at all, Yeah. And especially coming into this place where I'm being of service to others, I can only help people as deeply as I've met myself.
Exactly.
So it's becoming of me to do that work myself and to stand in that truth, even if it's uncomfortable. So, because that's what everybody else is going through too.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. I coined the ascension addiction after going through like several self-realizations. It reminds me so much of, for anyone who watches Key and Peele, I love Key and Peele. It's a hilarious, show, but one of the episodes, has like, and they're showing the characters where like someone's like putting up a front, and doesn't have really any original ideas. They're just going with everyone else. And the guy's like, nah, bro, like, what do you think? But like, what's true to you? Like, stop following everyone else. And he gets to a point where he breaks down. And he's like, don't look at me. He's like, I'm a fraud. And he started running away. And I bring that up because in so many ways I started feeling that way, where I was realizing all these things where like, oh my gosh, I'm projecting all this judgment. I'm like creating this hierarchy. Wow. I'm like compartmentalizing my personality, performing more than just what's really real, and checking in like, oh, there's this fear that's present, that's bringing me more into this image rather than the embodiment of it. And so the ascension addiction was a very honest and very opportune way for me to express like, fuck, like I was noticing these things of myself, and the more honest I was able to be with, this is present and this is where I'm at, and this is how I'm moving through it, so I could come more into the compassion, the awareness, the authenticity was the key. Like what's most alive in me, in my heart, in my body, and what's really real and honest about how I'm sharing myself, and all of myself, not just pieces for the sake of how it's going to look for the brand or how it's going to look for the sake of the aesthetic, but allowing all of it to just be there and be showcased. And it empowered my artistry into another level, because it was then giving me the permission to, so to speak, paint with different colors and try different schemes, and in a better way, give myself the permission to be seen as I am, rather than like before doing live streams or other things that would allow me to be seen, holding this certain image, right? Having certain things to share and a presentation. But the medicine has brought me more into just show up as I am. And that is the medicine, is the presence.
Yeah, I love that. We had a previous episode where we were talking about like how to do men's work and how to get started with breath work. Yeah. And there was a question on there about like, well, how can we get our friends or our family to come to this work? Mm-hmm. And what the discussion came down to was all we have to do is show up and do our own work. Right. Like it's not for me to show up and say like, hey, Tristan, like there's this really cool thing, like come check it out. But if I show up authentically every day and I'm doing my own work and I'm embodied in my presence, then other people are going to look at me and go, hey, bro, what are you doing? Right. You know, like you weren't like this a year ago or 5 years ago or when you were in high school. So like, I'm curious. And then that's the invitation of like, cool, it worked for me. It can work for you. You know, it's not magic.
Right. You know? Right. Exactly.
So I love that you are, you know, really finding your own compass and like listening to it and embodying your own higher self and purpose. And when you do that, it just sends out that beacon of light to everybody else around you.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, this has been a great discussion. I really appreciate your time and your energy and your wonderful input, Tristan. If people want to work with you, where should they go to connect or learn more?
Yeah, you can go on my bio and there's a link there. It's a milkshake link and that'll have all my links and ways to connect and move forward.
Awesome. Well, this has been a really awesome conversation and I really appreciate your time. Everybody should go check out I Am Tristan Victor. He's got some great content, great lessons and knowledge to share with everybody. And I hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving, whatever that means to you. You know, even if it's just taking a few breaths and like finding some gratitude for where we're at in the present day. We will be back next week with another awesome guest. And until then, thank you so much for joining in or watching the replay. Tristan, I'll post this video in a few minutes and that way we can share it on our accounts and whatnot.
Let's do it. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for your time. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Aho, taso kamati, omateo.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, brother. Peace.
Take care. Thanks for checking out this episode of One Question Wednesday. I hope that not only you enjoyed it, but that you feel inspired to go and practice, go meditate, do some breath work, take an ice bath, or that you feel curious about adding a new practice to your self-development and transformation work. As always, if you can follow, subscribe the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to it on, that really helps. Just making that or adding a review really helps push the show up in the algorithm. And also follow me on Instagram at Blue Magic Alchemy, all one word. And if you're interested in learning more about breathwork or you'd like support integrating or preparing for self-development and transformational work, reach out to me at bluemagicalchemy@gmail.com or on Instagram to set up a discovery call for integration coaching. Until next time, thank you, be well, and keep practicing.